And welcome to another edition of Defo on 5. I'm Jeff DeForest, and that, of course, is one Mike Luby Lubitz. So happy you guys are tuning in. Good to have you with us. This is what is known on our regular show on South Florida Live as Degenerate Friday. And why not degenerate right here at the top on 5 Reasons Sports Network? Luby, how are you, by the way? How was your evening last night?
I'm ready for some degeneration. How are you, sir?
Well, do you like the shirt? I mean, I'm getting in the spirit of things, March Madness, because anybody that's a fan of 5 Reasons Sports Network or has listened to our shows over the years or just has been a resident of South Florida and a sports fan in South Florida in general knows that this is not, repeat after me, read my lips, as they say, is not a college basketball town. Is that as simple a statement as you could possibly make? And there's a long history of proof of that, right? We didn't even have a college basketball team at the University of Miami for a while. That was a big shock to me when I first moved to town. I come here in 1981. I meet Howard Schnellenberger. Schnelly's talking about, a couple of years from now, we might be competing for a national championship. And everybody's going, man, the old man has lost it, man. He's flat out of his mind. National championship? What are you talking about? There's no national championship coming. Of course, a couple of years later, what do we have? Well, it was nice to win our first national championship.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, it still worked out for the Hurricanes because they began that, it was like 2 decades of dominance on the football field. And they had a series of coaches, great coaches. Jimmy Johnson comes in after Howard left, and nobody knew who he was. Everybody said, that ain't going to work. Sam, you've lost your mind. Jankovic, what are you doing? Who is this clown? Oklahoma State? Nobody cares about them.
I mean, they weren't horrible.
Eventually, that worked out. Dennis Erickson, was able to win, Did he win 2 championships here, Dennis Erickson? And then we had Butch. He didn't win a championship, but man, did he stock a team so that even Larry Coker was able to win a national championship and nearly took 2 in a row. If it wasn't for that Terry Porter guy coming from, was he even on the field officiating that game against Ohio State? I think he came out of the stands, came leaping out of the stands, Libby. Do you remember that? Paul D's on the field. He was the athletic director at the time. They had already doused Paul with Gatorade, and he's running, celebrating, and then all of a sudden, there's a whistle and there's a flag. And that was it. The rest is history, and we all know it was negative history. And then we found out later on that Larry Coker really didn't have a clue what he was doing. He was much better suited for the online school that he took over at the University of Texas San Antonio, which is now a powerhouse. So you could say that he laid the foundation for what greatness was about to come. But college basketball, forget about it. And I had a close association with the Canes basketball team for a couple of years. I was calling their games, and I would have to say it really made you think that the existential philosophers were onto something when they said, A, life is meaningless, and B, it's all about the emptiness. I mean, we're talking Jean-Paul Sartre, no exit man. Leonard Hamilton, if he was looking for anything out of that program when he was coaching in the early years, it was the exit. That was the one sign that he was very fond of. This is how you get out of the building, Leonard. You don't have to do the post-game interview because there really isn't going to be much to say after another 30-point loss to Northern Illinois. Here we have it there. Boy, Kevin Norris played a gutsy game, but it wasn't a basketball town. Now, later on, in dribs and drabs, it sort of caught on, but it never really had a heavy impact. And it's funny, too, Lou, because you know this. I mean, we've gone on the road and found guys traveling to, like, the Final Four. When we went to the Final Four in Houston, and we get on a plane there, and, here's a bunch of Miami fans with no horse in the race. I mean, we were talking about a Final Four that had, Syracuse, at North Carolina, Villanova, and Oklahoma was the other team with Buddy Hield hoisting threes. That was in Houston, Texas. Yes. And we're at the airport, and all of a sudden, people are coming up to, once in a while, somebody will come up to me and say, hey, you're Defo, aren't you? And then the big shocker was, and this was sort of early on in our tenure there, they're coming up to you and going, you're Luby. Recognized my voice, and we thought, what are you guys doing? They're going, we're going to the Final Four. And I thought, we didn't have that level of basketball fan here, college basketball fan in South Florida. Now, we know a lot of guys travel, and I always hear this from people. Yeah, I'm going out to Vegas for the first round of the tournament, which everybody loves. But aside from that, that must be a handful of select people because college basketball was a brick here in this town forever. It traditionally does the lowest ratings of any of the sporting events that are on TV. You go back, they didn't even have a team. That was the shocker after I finished covering that 82 Hurricanes football team and season. I'm like, okay, good. Where's the basketball office? And they're like, well, the closest we have to a coach here is Bobby Crimmins. He's up at Georgia Tech. Might have to drive to Atlanta to find somebody that can talk about college basketball. But Jim Larrañaga has done some good in turning that around. The Wasco Center, which did we ever figure out what Wasco does? Air conditioning, right? Wasco Center.
Like HVAC or something like that. Yeah.
And holy Joe Zagacki, I mean, they're drawing full crowds there at the Wasco Center for the Hurricane basketball games, which is a surprise because when I was doing the games, I mean, it was dreadful. They hadn't won a game. I think they'd lost like 17 straight in the Big East before they finally beat St. John's in the second year that I was traveling with the team. And they're literally, it was a shame. They were playing at the old Miami Arena. And I don't think that the vendors outnumbered the number of fans that were in the stands. So I don't know if it's going to catch on. We're already dead. The reason I bring this up is because it's our Degenerate Friday, and I'm already thinking, I'm trying to formulate some kind of theories about who to play in the NCAA tournament.
Oh, jeez.
Now, I'm not just talking about individual games, but I'm talking about the eventual winner. Do you have any track on who's going to win this thing this year, Mike Lubitz?
No way.
None?
I mean, you got to wait till the bracket comes out too, because the matchups are everything. But this is as open a year as any. I mean, no one can stay at number one. Every week, number one seems to lose.
Are the Hurricanes in there with a chance? That would be question number one. Are they in there with a legitimate shot? My first instinct, and I love Jim Larrañaga, and I love the way the team has played. I love what he's put together. I know Jimmy Boeheim is upset because they say he bought a team. And who is this cat, Diaz, that has all the money?
John Ruiz.
Ruiz. Yeah, John Ruiz, the former heavyweight champion.
Yeah, sure.
Probably the most bogus heavyweight champion in history was John Ruiz, for you fans out there at boxing and the sweet science. But this is the guy with the money. Nevin, where is Nevin Shapiro? Is he still in jail or did he get out?
He's out.
Okay. But Jimmy B, I mean, that was really an ugly assertion on his part that Jim Larrañaga was cheating and buying a team.
Who? Who'd
he buy? Right? I don't see Pete Maravich on that team in his prime. They're shooting a rock for LSU. Do you? Got a bunch of guys that you wouldn't have no idea who they were. None, except for Isaiah Wong, who was popular in New Jersey, but nobody knew about this kid down here. So I don't know. That seems like a very baseless allegation. Are these guys all making like a couple of $100,000 a game? Is that the way it works? I don't know. But regardless, there really isn't that genuine steam about it all around town. Would you say that it's not like there's a ton of excitement about upcoming March Madness? I will say this, though, that we already steered you wrong. So if you're a fan of the show, we're only in our third episode. We already buried our public here because Big Daddy ain't going to be dancing. As in Lipscomb. They lost yesterday to Kennesaw State. Why would I be paying attention to that game? Because I had money on it.
Oh my God.
Otherwise, I may as well have been watching, junior varsity women's volleyball, but probably had money on that too. Anyway, I hope people are going to get excited about it. We have the ACC tournament coming up for the Hurricanes. They made the Great Eight or the Elite Eight last year, and nobody think about that. They were one game away from the Final freaking Four.
Yes.
And there's zero excitement about it. No buzz going into the ACC tournament. Jim Larrañaga has to go out there. I mean, he stopped just short of wearing one of those things that you see, around abortion clinics where the people are saying God believes in all life, and they're parading back and forth there, and they won't let the person in that wants to get, some kind of procedure done. But it's very hard to tout this. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jim Larrañaga with a little leather cap on flying one of those planes over the beach going, guess what? It's March Madness, people. Otherwise, it's a brick in this town, even now. It's unfortunate, but we're trying to pump it up here. Can you recognize this, or is it coming out backwards?
It says March. It's backwards, but it says March Madness.
Okay. What do you think? I mean, you think I've been able to stimulate any interest in this on 5 Reasons Sports Network?
No.
Let's go, guys. I'm going to grab some pom-poms, just become a cheerleader, because I'd love to see some interest sparked. But for years, we've been fighting this on the airwaves here in South Florida. It's been unbelievable. Hey, let's talk some college basketball. Okay, we could do that. I always love when a talk show host said that we can talk about this. It's like, well, we can talk about anything, man. It's not going to make any difference. You're boring as hell. And, if you're going to limit it down to college basketball, you're in trouble, Jack. In this town, that's for sure. All right, wild, unbridled optimism for Major League Baseball always is a parallel with the beginning of spring training. Wild, unbridled optimism, unless
Unless you're down here.
here we go again, man. This is depressing, Luby. How are we going to
Excited.
keep this show going when everything we talk about is negative, negative, negative?
Yeah, that's the fun.
I'm trying to infuse some enthusiasm in here, but the conversations we've had so far about your Miami Marlins have not been particularly bright. It's the usual rhetoric, and once again, we are living here in the city of false hope. But it's very hard for these guys to even sell false hope anymore because do we have even a central spokesperson for the team? We used to have, when Derek Jeter was there, at least he was, a figure that everybody recognized. Now, it was kind of depressing if you think about it. And how detached was Derek Jeter in reality from what was going on with another 5-year plan that was instituted here with the sports franchise in South Florida that is now in its 11th year. It's amazing. With no perceivable change in the outcome or the prospects. But prospects aren't bright. Every baseball conversation we've had about the Marlins is, well, they might be a little bit of an improved team this year, but I don't know.
We talked with Tommy Hutton, who works with the team.
Tommy Hutton's great, yeah.
For the team. And both were like, yeah, they should be able to get to 75. Okay.
Right? We had our deal Volkswagen. Drive for what was it? 75 that one year. It was a drive for 75, and we hit it once. The only time we hit it was when it was the drive for 25.
Yes.
Thank God for COVID, or we would have never covered a bet. It's the one big benefit of COVID-19 that we actually covered an over that year with Don Mattingly winning like 28 games, and they made it into the postseason, and they beat the Cubs, which has put the Cubs into a tailspin. I think they'll never recover from. After losing that playoff series to the Marlins. But I don't know. They made some changes. Are these always cosmetic changes? Is it like putting, a little bit of makeup on a big red zit that still is emerging, and you're going out on a first date, you're with a first-time starter, and the only thing that she's going to zero in on the entire night is that zit right in the center of your forehead. Maybe the one on your lip. Do I want to kiss this man? I don't think so.
Oh, no.
Gets a little pussy. I mean, but that's kind of how it is, right? I mean, cosmetic changes. Putting a Band-Aid on a brain tumor. We got the American League leader in batting average. He beat out Aaron Judge, prevented him from winning the Triple Crown. Arias is his name, came from the Minnesota Twins. And I'm probably mispronouncing it because nobody knows who this guy is. It's not like, whoa, baby, we got Carl Yastrzemski in his prime.
Well, that's not happening. They don't care about anymore.
Good for it really is incredible, isn't it? But while there's unbridled, wild optimism everywhere around, I get my New York Post every day. Mets, Yankees, Mets, and barely a mention of the Miami Marlins anywhere around town. I don't even see guys wearing Marlins caps anymore. They don't even sell them by the cash at the gas stations anymore. They got some camouflage hat there instead that you can pick up. A couple of quick things here, and always great to have you guys with us on Defo on 5 with Mike Luby Lubitz, of course. I watched a little of the Philadelphia-Dallas game last night. Okay. Luka Doncic goes for 40-plus. He was shooting from the Coke machine and beyond. They actually put a Coke machine out there at one point. They wheeled one out. And the Coke machine was guarding Doncic, but that was just his measurement for how far out he was going to shoot the basketball. Kyrie Irving also goes for 40 in the game. So think about that. Here's a Philadelphia 76er team that without Joel Embiid, here we go, a little negativity coming. Without Joel Embiid, blew out the Miami Heat at home on the back leg of, it wasn't quite a back-to-back. There was a day in between. But it was a day that obviously saw the Red Sea part for the Miami Heat because they went from just a gutsy winning effort in Philadelphia against a very good 76er team and came back and laid a complete Rodan-sized egg. The very next night against Philadelphia, a Philadelphia team whose defense then yielded 40 points to two different guys in the same game. This wasn't like it happened over a period of time. It happened last night, as they say. 40 points to two different guys, almost an impossibility. I mean, it's an aberration, the likes of which you probably have to go back to, it was 1938. Naismith had 40. My God, how is that possible? And this still, it strikes me every time I see Luka Doncic. Is it possible that he was the key part of maybe the worst trade in basketball history?
No. I mean, Trae Young's an all-star.
Trae Young is a coach-killing all-star, though. And apparently, I mean, I don't know how true this is because you never know what to believe. You read something and some guy asserts that everybody hates Trae Young on the team. They don't want to
Oh,
notice Teddy
really?
in the locker room.
Seen
Yeah.
her. Oh God.
They suggested that he wasn't the most popular guy in the locker room.
Oh, jeez.
And of course, McMillan was I think, a fairly popular coach. Although, did he ever crack a smile, Nate McMillan?
No, he does. He's not a smiler. That's for sure.
No, man. He looked as sour. He looked like he always found out that a close friend of his had just died. Like they just whispered it in his ear before the game. Joe's no longer with us. And
Oh my God.
anyway, is it possible to have an all-star as part of a deal and
he
still
said.
have it be worse than when the Joe Barry Carroll deal went down with the Boston Celtics and the Warriors, and they sent him back? The Celtics ended up getting the Chief and the rights to Kevin McHale, and the Warriors ended up with one of the all-time stiffs in NBA history, Joe Barry Carroll. I guess he probably wasn't one of the all-time stiffs.
No, he was okay.
It wasn't horrible, but certainly wasn't the value of the Chief and McHale.
I mean, the Kareem trade was rough. Like, to me, they made an Eastern Conference Finals, and Trae Young made multiple All-Stars. So the trade was fine. It's just Luka's now a top 3 player in the NBA.
Luka's dynamite. Yeah. I still get a kick out of it. I don't know if you guys remember out there the image of Luka's father, what was sitting with Mark Cuban, and Luka's father literally looked like Luca Brasi. It looked like there was a guy behind Cuban that if they didn't get him some help right away, was going to, go ahead and put the old piano wire around the neck, around his neck from behind, a seat from behind. A couple of quick things. The Florida Panthers losers last night. They could be I think there were only 5 teams in history that had the best record in hockey, and then in the subsequent year didn't make the playoffs. We're about to maybe get into that kind of level of distinction of infamy, as the Panthers losers last night to the Nashville Predators 2-1. Our friend Jim Sarney said they did everything but win the game. Well, come on, Herm. Give it to us. You play to win the game. And they weren't able to do that. And we're all excited tomorrow around at Gulfstream Park, the Fountain of Youth, which is one of the great prep races for the Spring Classics, as they're known, Kentucky Derby, and the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes. And we'll see if we can find a contender in there. We will be out there later on today. If you catch us, if you're watching this thing before noon here on 5 Reasons, come on out to Gulfstream Park and meet Mike Mayo, and we'll be doing the Lunchbox Show out there. We get some good food, and we get some bets in, which is really, really good. Everybody have a great weekend. Nice being with you here. Defo on 5. For Mike Luby Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest, and we will catch you next time, Monday morning, with Defo, the next edition of Defo on 5.